Jessica Torres straightened her worn scrubs as she walked into Harbor Medical Center for another double shift. At 33, she'd been working as an ER nurse for 6 years, and in that time, she'd become the subject of whispered comments and barely concealed judgment. Her scrubs were faded from too many washes, her shoes were repaired with duct tape on the soles, she brought lunch in reused containers, and never joined the other nurses for dinner out. The staff had a name for her behind her back, the poor nurse. Jess, are those the same scrubs from 3 years ago? Monica, one of the younger nurses, said loud enough for others to hear, "Girl, maybe invest in some new ones. We have standards here." The others laughed, and Jessica simply nodded, clipping her badge to her pocket without responding. It was Christmas Eve, and she had 16 hours ahead of her. She didn't have energy for their mockery today. What they didn't see was that after this shift, Jessica would go home to her small apartment where her 70-year-old mother lived. The same mother battling stage 4 cancer whose treatments cost more than insurance covered. They didn't know about the medical bills stacked on her kitchen table, or the second job she worked on her days off, or the fact that she'd sold almost everything she owned to keep her mother alive. Her worn scrubs weren't about neglect. They were about choosing between new clothes and her mother's medication. She chose her mother every single time. The ER was relatively quiet for Christmas Eve until the ambulance call came in. Navy SEAL training accident, multiple casualties incoming. Within minutes, 3 stretchers rolled in, but 1 patient was in critical condition. Lieutenant Commander James Mitchell, 38, had taken shrapnel to his chest and abdomen during a live-fire exercise gone wrong. He was conscious but fading fast, his blood pressure dropping despite the paramedics' efforts. Jessica was assigned to his bay. She moved with quiet efficiency, starting IVs, hanging blood, preparing for the trauma team. As she leaned over to adjust his oxygen mask, her hospital badge swung forward, catching the light. It wasn't just any badge. Clipped next to her ID was a small pin, faded and worn, but unmistakable to those who knew what to look for. A Navy Hospital Corpsman badge with a Fleet Marine Force insignia, and beneath it, a tiny Christmas ornament. Lieutenant Mitchell's eyes, clouded with pain, suddenly focused with laser intensity. His hand shot up, grabbing Jessica's wrist with surprising strength. "That badge," he whispered hoarsely. "Where did you get that badge?" If you've ever been judged for your appearance while carrying burdens no one can see, stay with this story because what this SEAL is about to discover will prove that some people wear their sacrifices on the outside while their heroism stays hidden within. Jessica gently tried to pull away. "Sir, I need you to stay calm. We're getting you stabilized." But Mitchell wouldn't let go. Christmas 2012, Helmand Province Task Force in the Sangin District. "Were you there?" His voice was urgent despite his injuries. "Were you Doc Torres?" Jessica froze. Every eye in the trauma bay turned toward her. She hadn't heard that name in years, Doc Torres. The corpsman who'd spent 3 tours embedded with Marine and SEAL units in Afghanistan, the one who'd earned her Fleet Marine Force pin by saving lives under fire, the one who'd been there that terrible Christmas when everything went wrong. "I was there," Jessica said quietly, her professional mask cracking. "Task Force Raptor. Christmas Day ambush." Mitchell's eyes filled with tears. "You saved my entire team that day. 8 of us went down in that kill zone. You ran through enemy fire 4 times to pull us out. 4 times. You took a bullet to your shoulder on the last run." His grip on her wrist tightened. "You're the reason I made it home to my kids. You're the reason any of us made it home." The trauma bay had gone completely silent. Monica stood frozen, her earlier mockery dying in her throat. Dr. Raymond, the attending physician, moved closer. "Nurse Torres, is this true?" Jessica's hand instinctively went to her left shoulder, where the scar was still visible. It was a long time ago. Different life, different life. Mitchell's voice grew stronger despite his injuries. "You received the Silver Star for that day. They wanted to give you the Navy Cross, but you refused it, said you were just doing your job." He looked at the other staff members, his voice carrying weight. "This woman is a decorated combat veteran. She saved more lives in 3 tours than most corpsmen see in a career, and you've been treating her like she's beneath you." Monica's face had gone white. "We didn't know. She never said anything." Mitchell's eyes stayed locked on Jessica. Because heroes don't need to announce themselves. They just show up and do the work. He turned back to Jessica, his expression softening. "Doc Torres, Why are you wearing that Christmas pin? We all stopped celebrating that day years ago. Too many memories. Jessica's eyes glistened with tears she'd held back for years. Because on the worst day of my life, when I thought I'd lost everything, my team survived. 8 Marines came home to their families because I didn't give up. I wear it to remember that even in the darkest moments, there's something worth fighting for. Her voice cracked. My mother has stage 4 cancer. Every cent I make goes to keeping her alive. My worn scrubs, my old shoes, people thinking I'm poor noon if that matters. She's still here. That's worth everything. And if you're still watching this, think about the people you've judged today, this week, this year. The ones whose appearance didn't match your standards, whose choices didn't make sense to you. Hit that like button if this story is changing how you see sacrifice. Because what comes next will remind you that some people choose between dignity and love, and they choose love every single time. Dr. Raymond stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. Nurse Torres, I apologize. We all do. We saw your surface and never bothered to look deeper. Jessica shook her head. You didn't know. I didn't want you to know. I just wanted to work, help people, and go home to my mother. That's all I've ever wanted. For the next 2 hours, Jessica worked on Lieutenant Mitchell with the same skill she'd shown in combat zones. Her hands steady, her decisions flawless, her calm absolute. The trauma team saw a completely different person now. Not the poor nurse, but the combat veteran who'd proven her worth in the worst conditions imaginable. When Mitchell was finally stabilized and headed to surgery, he held Jessica's hand one more time. Doc Torres, after this, I'm making some calls. The Navy takes care of its own, and you're one of ours. Your mother's treatment will be covered. It's the least we can do. Jessica's tears finally fell. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do, Mitchell said firmly. You gave me Christmas with my family for the last 12 years. Let me give that gift back to you. 3 weeks later, Jessica's mother's treatment was fully covered through a veterans medical fund that Mitchell had mobilized. The hospital administration, learning of Jessica's background, offered her a position as their trauma team coordinator with a significant raise. Monica and the other nurses who democked her organized a fundraiser that paid off the remaining medical debt. But more importantly, Jessica started wearing her medals on Veterans Day, not to show off but to honor the memory of those who didn't come home. She spoke at nursing schools about service and sacrifice, about how heroism often looks like quiet endurance rather than loud proclamation. The Christmas pin stayed on her badge year-round, a reminder that the darkest days can hold the most meaning, and that sometimes survival itself is the greatest gift we can give or receive. Sometimes the people who look like they have the least are actually giving the most. Sometimes poverty isn't about lack of ambition, but an abundance of love. Sometimes the person you dismiss as beneath you is actually operating on a level of sacrifice you uncomprehend.